prioritize space. I want to give a huge shout out to our 2024 Youth Ambassador cohort. They are all so brilliant and they have prepared amazing presentations for you today. I also just want to give a huge thank you to all of the staff who have made Michaela Cruz and Michaela Berry are our two youth engagement coordinators who started within this year. And this event simply would not have happened without their tireless energy and dedication to our youth ambassadors. So really want to thank them. I'm going to miss a million people, but I want to thank the Partnerships and Outreach Unit. Ray and Tang and Abir have made sure that everyone has a plate to eat today. Our marketing team has been wonderful with supporting the ambassadors this summer. Our policy and research team has also worked with our youth, as well as the press who has made this event possible. And also, of course, thank you to Eric, Paul, and the back members. I will pass it over to Paul for opening remarks.
Would you like to introduce yourself before we jump into mine? And then I think I'll just go back to Olivia after that. Why don't you take a few minutes?
Sure. My name is Danielle Gerard. I'm a member of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. I'm appointed by the controller, and it is so terrific to see so many of you here. First of all, this is certainly my favorite meeting of the year, but this is an incredible turnout, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for everything you're doing to get people voting, because it's super important. We always say now more than ever, but really now more than ever. So thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you, Danielle. Good evening, everybody. My name is Paul Seamus Ryan. I am the executive director of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. My pronouns are he and him. I am a late middle-aged white guy with short brown hair. I'm wearing a beige linen suit this evening and a blue dress shirt. The New York City Votes Youth Ambassador Program is an initiative of the New York City is an initiative for New York City high school students who are committed to increasing youth engagement in local elections. This program teaches young people about voting, democracy, and different ways of organizing for change. We're empowering New York City teens to be leaders among their peers. And we're learning from our youth ambassadors how to more effectively communicate with and to engage young New Yorkers in building a better democracy. I want to thank our youth ambassadors for sharing their knowledge, their experiences, their expertise, and their time with the Campaign Finance Board, with NYC Votes, with the VAC to make our work day to day, year to year, much more effective. The Campaign Finance Board wants to eliminate barriers that make it too difficult for New Yorkers, especially youth voters, to cast their ballots. New York doesn't have a voter registration problem. We have a voter turnout problem. Turnout among young voters is actually increasing steadily, especially in presidential election years. In 2020, turnout among young voters between 18 and 29 increased substantially from the 2016 presidential election. In New York, about 25% of eligible young voters turned out to vote in the 2020 presidential primary, and about 60% of eligible young voters turned out for the general election, which is an increase of more than 3%. Nationwide, about 52 to 55% of young voters turned out in 2020, an increase of about 8% compared to 2016. Recent polls have shown that there could be over 40 million potential voters aged 18 to 34 in this fall's election. 40 million potential voters. That's potentially a fifth of the electorate, making this a powerful, powerful voting bloc, and making it even more important to reach young people where they are and find out what matters to them. Beyond the presidential race, our elections shape how government resources get allocated to the public services that impact all of our lives daily. As more young people connect the dots between their daily struggles and what's on the ballot, young voters are beginning to mobilize in greater numbers, both to express their support for candidates and, perhaps more importantly, to hold them accountable. Voting isn't the end of civic engagement, though. It's just the beginning. Even young people who can't vote until they're 18 have countless ways to get involved. And that's exactly what this program is about, equipping our ambassadors with knowledge and empowering them to spread the word to even more young people. So whether you're eligible to vote or not, there are many ways to make an impact, from volunteering for a campaign or a nonpartisan GOTV effort to advocating for an issue that you care about with your local elected leaders, to even running for office yourself and hopefully getting elected to represent your community in our local government. So we will spend the rest of our time this evening hearing from our youth ambassadors and discussing why this work is crucial. So now I'll turn it back to Olivia Brady, our excellent youth programs manager, who will take us through the rest of this evening's program.
Thank you very much. Also now remembering that I did not introduce myself or give a full description, so I'm going to do that right now. My name is Olivia Brady. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a white woman. I have brown curly hair and wire-frame glasses, and I'm wearing a black dress. Again, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Just a quick rundown. Our ambassadors will be giving presentations, and then we will move into testimony. Testifiers, you will come over here when your name is called. I'll come up and call 3 people at a time, and you'll have 2 minutes to give your statement. But before we get into that, I want to invite Josue, one of our youth ambassadors, up here to draw our raffle card. Pick the name and
Enough.
Janelle. Jobla.
And so.
Sorry, you can take a seat. I also want to thank our ambassador alumni who showed up to support today. We really appreciate you all. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Miriam up to the stage to introduce our youth ambassador committees.
Hi, my name is Miriam and I am from the Bronx. And first up, I would like to introduce to you the Outreach and Education Committee.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stella Robbie and I'm from Staten Island. My name is Lillian Perella and I'm from Maine.
My name is Roy Pickering and I'm from the Bronx.
My name is Aiden, I'm from Sal.
So our committee analyzed the voter analysis report, which determined that youth had the lowest voter turnout from the age group 18 to 29. And our committee targeted the root and cause of this issue, which is what you'll see in the slides to come. So our research question is, how do identity, experience, and values impact voter turnout for New Yorkers ages 16 to 25?
All right, so some background information would be that 30% of youth didn't even know have enough information about candidates and didn't know how to vote. Another important stat to me was how 43% of Black youth and 50% of Asian youth either thought their vote wasn't important or they thought they were too busy to vote at all. And then another stat that would be important to me was that 44% of both not voting white youth and Latinos said they were more likely to not have enough information. So 4% of 16 to 17-year-olds were pre-registered to vote in the Bronx.
So our demographics are, we interviewed 15 people from multiple boroughs between 4 to 5 boroughs, and 5th one that we didn't interview being Manhattan. And 5 out of those 15 people were 18 or over. And we conducted qualitative and quantitative research in order to answer our research.
All right, so as you can see here, we interviewed 5 people that was over 18, but several of them have voted before. And also another important stat to me was that 8 out of 15 people were pre-registered, and then a lot of other people did not know about pre-registering when they were either that age or the age that they're at currently.
Okay, so our next slide is the themes we will be going over. So the first theme is access to information, which is essentially how youth get their information in regards to voting and politics. Our second theme is individual identity, which is how your personal values influence your voting choices. Our third theme is community values, which is basically about community engagement in relation to voting. And our fourth theme is alienation of voters, which is a sense of frustration or alienation in terms of voting.
Okay, so we had a 17-year-old white female from Staten Island, and what she said is that she didn't even know that you could pre-register to vote. And so somebody else came to the class to tell them, so that really puts emphasis on how.
Next slide.
Okay, our next theme is community values. A 17-year-old Black female from Brooklyn said that during COVID, she felt her community was more together in terms of political values, and they would come together and like lobby and talk about the states and whether they were going to be blue or red. And she felt like that was the time they were most connected, which is kind of unlike the second quote from a 16-year-old African American, Italian, Puerto Rican female from the Bronx. In her community, they don't value voting as much. They don't think of it as important, and that you're just like 1 in a million. So if you don't vote, someone else will. Which again differs from our last person, an 18-year-old Black female from Staten Island, whose neighborhood in the whole is very political and like straight voters. So if you just walked around, you'd see a lot of voting posters and like pictures of who to vote for, and it's just like they think voting is important, but they only think voting is important for their party, and aren't really very open-minded to whether or not the party is actually really good or bad.
And our fourth theme is alienation of voters. So a 17-year-old white female from Staten Island basically showed that there was a contrast between the 2008 election with the 2024 election, in which she described the 2008 recent debate with Biden and Trump as more personal attacks. And she described the 2008 election as a respectable talk about politics. And she also added that she believes that the candidates are very corrupt and too old. And a 16-year-old African-American, Italian, and Puerto Rican female said, coming from somebody in the Bronx, she felt that her community's values were not being upheld in the political world, so she would probably end up going independent as a result. And the last interviewee that I have on the screen was a 17-year-old Asian female from Staten Island. And she said that she's not sure about the candidates for the future of America, which just shows the uncertainty that youth are going through right now. So our themes do not exist in isolation from one another, and this relates to the values young people share because it determines issues that are important to them, like it shows like what they look for, because they want one that like reflects their values and like in public office. And most young people were able to formulate their own ideas because they were able to make connections between issues in their personal lives and their religion and politics. And knowing that most young people are aware of these issues that they face is enough to increase voter turnout, which brings us to the connection between values and our themes. If people have access to information about the candidates and have a clear understanding of their values, that will encourage them to vote and help shift the sense of alienation into a sense of being able to have their voices heard. So thank you everyone for listening, and special thank you to Olivia, Demiana, Catherine, and all the other workers who helped us with our research.
Questions?
Questions?
I'm sorry, I'm sitting awkwardly, but I would have wanted to watch you all anyway. That was really poised. You were all very poised and that was very articulate. And I just had two questions. One is, how did you find the people that you asked the questions of? And how did you come up with the questions? Because they were really great and it seems like you got really good representative answers.
I'll answer the first part. Okay. For the first part, we interviewed people in our communities and in the boroughs we were from. So we just interviewed people we knew, and we got people from like different demographics and from different areas. We could get a wide variety of input, and so we could hear everyone's voices.
Thanks for your second question. We came together, including Olivia, to talk about which questions seemed were more important. We had 4 main questions that like had to get asked in the general sense. And then we had a bunch of follow-up questions to like go in depth from our questions. And we also had a couple of questions that were like specific to if you were over 18. And then other questions that even if you weren't over 18, we could kind of change the question in a way that you could answer it even if you're younger. There's another reason maybe older goes to like 16 instead of staying at 18 and 29 because we are pretty young. So like we may not know a lot of very older people between the age of 18 to 29 you can interview. But also having that younger demographic of 16, 17, and 18, it kind of also goes like into the future about what their views are now and how they think now will affect them in the future when they can't vote.
Yeah, and like you can also like pre-register to vote at 16 years old. So we thought that it was good to have that in there. And our questions were targeted towards the theme and in like a broader sense to connect to the research question.
Well, you all did a really, really good job.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
So next up, we have the social media committee.
Hi guys, I'm Jane Barstow. I'm from the Bronx.
I'm Lola Coastline, I'm from Manhattan. I'm Angela Rodriguez, I'm from the Bronx.
I'm Rhea Thompson, I'm from Brooklyn.
Okay, so over the summer, we worked on different ways to boost civic engagement between our youth. And one of our ways of doing so was with the social media toolkit. Next slide. Okay, so this is what we're going to be going over today. What is the social media toolkit? Background information about our social media toolkit. We're also going to be showing you guys some content creation, hashtags and sample posts, and then end it with our mission. Okay, so what is a social media toolkit? A social media toolkit is something that we use to provide information to the socially engaged public. In our case, we're using our social media toolkit for New York in general, but we've recently been working on it to amplify and boost the campaign cause, which is our back hearing. And a social media toolkit sets certain tones to target our desired audience
we were trying to set a tone for our youth to come speak and voice their problems, which is what we were doing with our social media toolkit recently. Next slide. Why are we using a social media toolkit? NYC Votes finds a great use in the social media toolkit because it's one of the most efficient ways to spread knowledge between our socially engaged youth. Because nowadays, like everybody's on Instagram, stuff like that. And our social media toolkit consists of appealing graphics, attention-grabbing captions and hashtags. And what we do is we use an Instagram global engagement. This is the chart of it. This basically helps us keep in mind when we want to post to grab the most attention. So for us, it's like you would keep in mind posting on a Wednesday afternoon would reach more people than posting on a Monday morning, which is why like most of our posts, we use this chart to choose when we want to post and when we want to grab the most attention out of the public. Next slide.
Okay, so information. So here's what this slide is going to be about. So it's what is the NYC Votes brand identity and what is needed for a social media toolkit. So NYC Votes social media brands itself as a colorful, informative, straightforward account which is targeted towards the people of NYC and specifically the youth, since we're trying to grab their attention and to lower youth turnout. So here are the things that are needed. Our toolkit is composed of hashtags, captions, and a purpose. Hashtag is for the focus of the content. Caption is the description of the content, so you know exactly what you're getting into. And a purpose is short and cohesive to push an action from whoever is watching. So here on this graph, it shows that you have the lowest voter turnout than any other age group, and we're trying to tackle that using our toolkit. Next slide.
For our content creation experience, so we were actually given the opportunity to go outside and interview people, and we interviewed ourselves. So we met public opinion, we met with them, and something challenging was like finding people that want to be on camera, because a lot of people like see cameras and like, oh man, you know, like they get nervous or they get shy, and that's totally understandable. But that was something we found challenging. Another thing that we experienced was we met a non-voter. So we were able to speak to him and see his opinion on like why he's voting, why he's registered. And he basically just explained to us that he felt like his opinions and his values don't really matter to other people, and that so like didn't change anything. So we were able to educate him and let him know that, of course, although it's just one vote could change anything, and he'd be using his vote to stand up for other people in his community and for people that don't have the resources or the opportunities that he has. Next slide, please.
So one of the first things we did when working on the social media toolkit was work on captions and hashtags. We shared captions and hashtags we created with each other at the very beginning, because earlier in the program, we spoke about like the significance captions and hashtags has on like your social media posts, especially on Instagram. These captions, you can use them as just like a really quick and easy way to just like get someone engaged with your content. And then hashtags are helpful because, you know, whenever you search something up on Instagram in your search bar, if it's related to your hashtag, like it's more likely that your post will pop up. So we recognize the significance of that and immediately wanted to just like solidify the captions and hashtags we used. That being said, the captions we used we tried to like create captions that would attract people to the back hearing and just like quickly explain what we're offering, so people just want to show up. And then with the hashtags, we wanted to use hashtags and create hashtags that like related to the topics that we're going to be talking about today at the back hearing. Yeah. Next slide.
Okay, here are some sample posts, and you can see we tried to use really cool images. This one, the caption is "Party on Us, Voting on You." We wanted, as Rio said, we wanted to just engage with the youth, and just making a caption that's like, you know, really straightforward or like kind of fun. That's a way to engage with youth. Here's another one: "Speak up, speak out, pop out, show up at the back hearing, be loud about voting." So we chose this one because it's kind of fun, and like, you know, we're trying to tackle the youth and we want them to come to the back hearing. And yeah, here are the images and hashtags which are used. Hashtag NYC votes, hashtag NYC, hashtag youth voices. They're all really important, as Rio said. They are involved with our posts, so we chose those hashtags. And here is another sample post. This had the caption, "The youth's voice is important to our city and we want to hear it at the back here." We wanted something that was really straightforward for our audience and yes. Next slide, please.
So overall, our mission and just like purpose of the social media toolkit is just help like get as many people as possible engaged with the back hearing. In particular, individuals in areas with like lower voter turnout, especially the youth. The reason we want to target the youth is because we've already talked about it a bit, but there's a lot of like, not a lot of voter turnout when it comes to the youth in New York. And I feel like, you know, as youth ambassadors, it's kind of our responsibility to just like get our peers and just like young people across the city to turn out and like share their voice in voting. So yeah. Thank you guys so much. Before we walk off, we wanted to thank Mick, because like Mick was in charge of our committee, that was our supervisor, so big up Mick and everyone else who helped us out, like Olivia, and the rest of the social media. So thank you.
I always have questions, so I have another question, please. You mentioned Instagram. Were there other social media platforms that you used, or did you use Instagram because it's the one where you can reach the most people, or how did you end up picking that?
We're on like other social medias, like I'm pretty sure we're on Facebook. We're trying to expand our social medias onto other things like Twitch and Instagram, you know, because that's what the youth are into. But we mainly use Instagram because that's where we get the most engagement from our youth.
It's the most popular, or it's the one that people also go to the most for voting information?
It's the most popular and it's also like the most significant way to boost voter information because like as the youth, us as a team, when we talked about this before, like the one app we all had in common was Instagram. And those other apps, like it's not really an app for the youth. So that's why we're trying to use Instagram.
Thank you.
So not a question, but an observation. You said your goal was to create some social media that would help turn people out to this event, this meeting. This is by far the best attendance of any VAC meeting that I've been to in my tenure as executive director. So you've done an outstanding job, and I just wanted to recognize that and congratulate you. So well done.
Last but certainly not least, I would like to present to you guys.
Hello, everyone. We're the 2024 Press Committee, and we just want to share this quote from John Adams that reads, "The liberty of the press is essential to the security of freedom." And we really wanted to open with this quote because it highlights the importance and values of our very own Press Committee. And we believe that by researching and sharing and writing about the issues that we care about, we can work towards the betterment of society. And my name is Dustin Wang, and I'm from Queens.
I'm Patsy Cullen and I'm from the Bronx.
I'm Tias and I'm Queens. I'm Sophia Simon from.
Next slide, please.
So, press committee has a couple of goals, and the first one being researching issues to stop the spread of misinformation on voter registration and voting. We also participate in writing essays and reaching out to reporters. It helped build a lot of strength in the journalism aspect of press committee and also strengthening our op-eds.
Yeah, so like Patsy said, one of our main goals during this in this program was to write an op-ed. And what op-ed stand for is the opposite of editorial page. And an editorial is essentially a writing piece that reflects the opinions of editors and publishers of the news outlet. So our op-eds reflect our own opinions, and that's what we're gonna be talking about today, this session.
So my op-ed was about immigration because I grew up in an immigrant household. And I really wanted to talk about how helpless I feel like these people feel in a moment where we want to contribute to the future of, the United States and also participate in voting. And I also highlighted legislations that were passed that stop immigrants from voting and participating in who runs our country. Next slide, please.
And the topic of my op-ed was the trend of increasing age of politicians. So in 2022, the US Census Bureau reported that the median age of US population was around 38.5 years old. But when we look at this top graph up here, we can see that over the past few years, there's been a trend of increased age for our senators and US representatives, with their median ages at 65.3 years old and 57.8 years. So why does this matter? Well, according to this graph on the bottom, less than 40% of youth heard from a major party in 2022. So that's the Republican Democratic Party. And that just shows that there's been a disconnect between our older politicians and our growing block of young voters. But one of the solutions to this problem is that if young people get out to vote more, then we can change what our politicians look like and our government. So the current Congress is the most ethnically diverse to date, and that just goes to show the power that youth have if we just go out to vote. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and on the topic of the lack of civically engaged youth, I think it's important to highlight the misconception that a lot of older generations have about youth populations being particularly uninterested and unmotivated, or like kind of having like an apathetic mindset towards voting. I think it's important to acknowledge that approximately 40 million members of Generation Z are eligible to vote in this upcoming election. And I think that's an insane statistic because that could completely flip around in an election. And approximately half of those 40 million new eligible voters are people of color. But recent elections have shown that people of color, especially youth, are less likely to vote than white people. I think this is very important to acknowledge because it shows the underlying issues within a voting system, such as racial gerrymandering, redlining zones, lack of funding in certain areas. And I think it's important to kind of like dig deeper into the misconception that a lot of older generations have and really like get to the root of the issue.
So for my op-ed, I researched the benefits of electronic voting, and overall, I found that it's a really beneficial way to increase civic engagement amongst a variety of different groups of people, whether that be voters of color who are too scared to go to the voting booths because they don't want to face voter information, or disabled voters who don't want to face the extra complications that it could take to physically go to the voting booths. And while there are options to vote by mail, there have been plenty of scenarios where the votes were delayed or they got lost in the mail, which makes them unreliable. And while there are a significant amount of concerns that come with electronic voting, such as the safety of it or whether or not it would be hacked, since there hasn't been an actual implementation, it's we can't say for sure that these are concerns that would happen. However, a study that did create like a simulation of electronic voting showed that the majority of participants said that if electronic voting wasn't an option, then they wouldn't have voted. Next slide.
Here we're going to review some key learnings from our committee, some things we wanted to recap. I think that as a committee, we really emphasize the importance of our research because I feel like as youth ambassadors, it's kind of our obligation to keep ourselves well informed as well as keep our community well informed. So we really took our research seriously. We dedicated ourselves entirely to our research and making sure we had accurate information.
Another important thing that we learned was that networking was very important in the journalism industry. We're always reaching out to a variety of different news outlets, and they're all connected with each other. So all the writers that work there, so it's really important to build healthy and positive relationships in case we work with them in the future.
And again, on the topic of communication, we found it really important to communicate within a group ourselves because the most important way to actually send a message or progress as a society is by unifying together and discussing problems within a community as opposed to just pursuing it on your own. And we really emphasize communication within our own group, with our ambassadors and our
research groups.
Next slide. Thank you all for listening, and we want to give a special thank you to Yatna, Tim, and Adele for helping lead us throughout the entire summer and this loves.
Told you I always have a question. That was great. Everybody's been really great. It's a pleasure to listen to you. How did you arrive? You talked about how there were problems with electronic voting. I assume that involves hacking and what was your general research about that? I'm sorry?
Like what I found.
Yes, yes.
I found that a lot of citizens in the US are concerned about implementing electronic voting because they're not sure how safe it is and get hacked. And they just, they're not safe 100% sure that it can always be reliable.
Thank you.
Great job. My question is going to be, we've all talked about the low turnout, especially in local elections, and CFP's focus is local elections. And in my opinion, it goes a bit hand in hand with the amount of press attention given to local elections. There was a period of time where the press used to pay much more attention to local elections than it does right now. If you take a recent example, the New York Times recently announced that they won't even make endorsements in local elections in New York anymore. So I was wondering, how do you guys think that the CFB or NYC votes can approach increasing or encouraging increased press attention for local elections? Try to get that increased turnout.
I would say actually the social media team could be a part of that, just so it kind of goes hand in hand with each other.
Also think getting more youth to engage with the press and going out to do their own research and accessing kind of like websites that show details about local elections. Like you said, it will bring more attention and more civic engagement, especially among youth.
Yeah, I think events like this alone, they can really emphasize the importance of local elections.
Thank you. I didn't mean to give you a hard question.
So, all right, well, thank you to our wonderful, intelligent, amazing 2024 youth ambassadors. We're now going to move into the spoken testimony portion of the evening. But first, Eric Friedman has a quick announcement.
Hi, I'm Eric Friedman. I'm Assistant Executive Director for Public Affairs at the CFB. I just want to take a quick moment to recognize that we're joined remotely by Lupe Hernandez, who represents the Public Advocate's Office. Public Advocate Jamani Williams is a member of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. Lupe is Education and Opportunity Community Organizer in the Public Advocate's Office. So wanted to recognize that she is with us tonight, and if she's able to say a few words over Zoom, and we're able to kind of connect her to that, please take a minute to do so.
Thank you. Good evening. Lupe Hernandez, she, her, ella, and on behalf of the Public Advocate and our whole staff, Elizabeth Kennedy, we really wish we could be there in person, but always happy to listen and engage with our youth. You guys, our young people, have been so empowering, especially in this initiative, and we love to hear directly from you. I think it's important to hear the framework in moving this work forward from your lens is really important. And I thank you guys so much, and wish we could have been there in person, but know that the Public Advocate very much supports all of the recommendations and from our young people today. So thank you very much. And we will be here listening to all of the testimony this evening.
So our speakers can make their way up here. Our first two speakers are Anna Free, Abigail Lynn, Ram Gopal. Again, if I mispronounce any names, apologizing in advance, please correct me, so that you have 2 minutes to speak. I'll be timing you. And yeah, Anna, please come in.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Humphrey. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm a 22-year-old voter as well as the voting community organizer for the Center for Independence of the Disabled New York. So today I would like to share my thoughts on why it's crucial for young voters, especially those with disabilities, to be active participants in our elections. So firstly, voting is a way for us to make our voices heard. As young people, we're often at the forefront of social and political change. Our generation faces unique challenges, and it's vital that our perspectives are represented in national as well as local policy. However, I realize that there are barriers that prevent many young people with disabilities from participating in the electoral process. Inaccessible voting places and a lack of information about candidates and policy can discourage young voters from casting their ballots. As a disability advocate, I'm particularly aware of how these challenges can disproportionately affect our community. That's why it's essential for New York City to prioritize accessibility in all aspects of voting, from registration to the physical voting process. For young people with disabilities, understanding policies and aligning their vote with supportive candidates is crucial. Their votes can directly impact the services and supports available to them. This includes affordable and physical health care, increased availability of employment and housing options, accessible transportation, and inclusive education. To increase voter turnout, I believe we need more targeted outreach and education. Schools, community organizations, and local governments should work together to provide comprehensive civic education and resources tailored to young people. In my experience, voting for the first time was empowering. It felt like I was finally contributing to the change I wanted to see, but not every young person has had that positive experience, and it's our responsibility to ensure that all voices are heard and valued in our democracy. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Abigail Lynn. I'm 16 years old and I'm from Queens. And I'm not here from New York Public Library, but I am a teen civics ambassador at the NYPL. And today I want to shine a light on teen mental health and how that relates to the importance of voting in the upcoming elections. I would love for there to be more resources for mental health, such as more social workers in schools, multilingual resources, mental health coverage, and insurance. But these hurdles require legislation and support. And I would never be able to make these changes alone. But nonpartisan organizations like the NYPL and grassroots organizations like WIVO have empowered me to use my vote. And so NYC Votes and the Campaign Financial Board, we need your support to make civic engagement a norm across New York City, with open conversations possible. I know NYC Votes has already partnered with great organizations such as WIVO, CUNY Votes, and Civics for All, but this is still not enough to reach residents who have little to no knowledge of politics, especially those who are blocked by language barriers and disabilities, such as mentioned previously. And so we urge NYC Votes to expand its efforts through a campaign that targets high schools, community centers, and overlooked communities. Let's work together to make sure that every young person understands the power of their voice and feel empowered to participate in their community. Together, we can create an informed, active, and passionate young generation.
Know to keep it brief, but I wasn't aware of the 2 minutes, so I'm sorry if it goes slightly over. First, I want to begin by thanking the CFP and NYC Votes for the commendable work you do on this issue already. I wanted to make sure to be at this hearing today due to the unique dynamic of being someone in the age demographic you're targeting here, but also somebody who's been a major party nominee for office before and has experienced the other side, having run for city council last year. The youth in the city have the lowest voter turnout, unfortunately, but sometimes we, and justifiably so, complain the most because we have the most to lose by not turning out in our local elections. We're going to be here, hopefully, for the longest while going forward. And in my experience, youth tend to be the most disinterested in voting, especially if they think it's a small election, doesn't matter. And yes, some issues of youth disaffection in politics are larger societal or national issues that New York City alone can't fix. But let's focus on what we can fix. The overall low voter turnout in last year's local elections, for instance, we had about 13% turnout across the city, less than 10% in the single digits in some areas. Only 8.3% of the voters who showed up were actually in the demographic 18 to 29. Over 65% of those who actually turned up to vote were over the age of 50. That's not going to be a representative voting bloc to vote for the future of New Yorkers, especially young New Yorkers. We clearly care about politics. We know how to protest on issues ranging from gun violence to the environment to recent events in Gaza. But unfortunately, we don't vote. As the youth ambassadors said earlier, 30% of the youth say they don't have enough information. We need to make the information more accessible, showing the importance of local elections too, showing how local government makes the decisions affecting your everyday life, the budgeting decisions, funding decisions, your parks, your libraries, police, everything. Focusing on what New York City and the Campaign Finance Board has done well over the years. We have, they prioritize TV debates and voter guides, which have done tremendous work in terms of informing New Yorkers, but we also need to update that for the modern day. We're no longer crowding around our TVs to watch Mayor Bloomberg debate Freddie Ferrer as once was the case. Everybody's on their phones consuming short form social media. If we're able to take the voter guides, physical and video voter guides that we do have, and which has and take that to new mediums. We can engage much more young people. Young people are clearly very interested in debates. We saw that in the Trump-Biden debate recently. If we were able to have engage with local groups, local press to have debates for all city council races, so that we know how important that can be. If we consider, for example, getting more young people involved in politics, looking at the spending caps and ways that you can even the playing field to get more young people to run for office, and also potentially get the elections more competitive. Non-partisan elections, for instance, is one thing that's been looked at. Jungle primaries, as California, Louisiana have, and I know it's been suggested to put the elections in even years. The presidential turnout is high. It's great the presidential turnout is high, but I think that if combining the two risks, confusing young voters even more. And we can do it. We've had high turnout before. We can do it again. One thing that I'll just finish on as a final point is I noticed that there is a gender imbalance here today, for instance, in what voters we are reaching. I think that is something to consider, how we can actually, I commend all the young women for turning out here today, but how can we actually reach young men too and not leave them behind and engage in the voting process? So thank you for listening to me. Sorry for going brief for time.
All right, thank you. Our next three speakers are Ryan Ahmed, Sarah Kirschbaum, and Kaylee Martinez.
Hello, everyone. I don't think Raven is here. So, hello, everyone. My name is Kaylee Martinez, and I'm from the Bronx. I'm 20 years old, and I will be an upcoming senior at SUNY New Paltz in fall 2024. And my major is communication. I'm currently a SYP intern for the Office of City Council Member Karina Sanchez in Bronx District 14. First, I want to thank Karina Sanchez for the amazing work she is doing and for giving me, as a young person, the opportunity to work for her to creating a better future for New York City. I would also like to thank her wonderful team, including the staff and SYP interns, for all the hard work they do. We have Kinsan in the audience. She's one of the SYP interns for City Council member. Now, I would like to talk to us as young people. Now, we as young people, we do have the power to change systems that oppress and suppress society. We as young people have the power to create positive change in this world, because one day we will be the change makers of this world. You as a young person can use your voice and speak up, because your voice matters. Your voice matters. To know that as a young person, you do have power without having to be in a position of power. To know that as a young person, you do have power. We are not too young to know about the issues that we see in our community every single day. We see the issues and we want to contribute to creating the solutions to those issues. Remember that your vote is your voice. Young people need to pre-register at 16 or 17 and vote at 18. Voting agencies need to engage youth and get youth to register to vote where they spend most of their time, which would be like in schools, in after-school programs, in community centers, and maybe even on social media. We were talking about social media, the social media presentation for all my TikTok users out there. I also use Instagram. And we need to see that voting is one of the most important political experiences outside of the classroom. Oh, the time's going up. Okay. Teachers who teach politics, government, and US history should also teach youth how to vote. Lastly, I would like to share a quote before I leave. Alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah Kirschbaum, and I am on the Civilian Complaint Review Board as a youth advisor. Today, I'm going to speak to you about pre-registration. I currently run a website and I'm the founder, and it helps people pre-register to vote called Plan to Vote. And it's pretty cool. You should check it out. It's only for New York right now because I kind of just started it. But if you want to look at it, it's pretty cool. And I want to remind you guys, on my website, I don't tell anyone what to vote for. It is completely unbiased, and I'm not here to tell you what to vote for right now. I am here to tell you that outside of the presidential election, there is a whole entire political world, and there's so much more to what you're voting for than just who the president is. And there's so much more to the political policies that affect you than who the president is. Every single seat in the House is up for re-election this year. And that's pretty important. That matters to you. That has more of an impact on your life than the president. He can only, or she, can only do so much. But I want to remind you that no matter what you do, no matter who you vote for, there's so much to look at. There's so much to understand.
All right. Our next three speakers are, and our last three speakers in person are Mabinti Kita, Tasneem Reza, and Ashton Nilamota. So Mabinti, you can come up.
Hello, I'm Mabinti, a 15-year-old from Manhattan. I use she, her pronouns, and today I want to address the low youth voter turnout in New York. I feel like it's important to me because voters who are closer to my age can amplify my voice since I'm not yet able to vote. And we also offer diverse perspectives that the older generations may not. I believe the low turnout is due to a lack of support and education from the older generations in our communities, making us feel like our voices aren't wanted. And I feel like a way to change this is to empower our young voters by providing them with the tools to understand the importance of voting. For example, creating spaces like this where we can express our views. Like, for example, youth-led advocacy groups where we can host events where we discuss our lives and concerns, and hosting community events in communities that are disadvantaged where we can vote together makes voting feel like a collective experience. Like said before, using social media is important because most of the people that I know use social media every single day. So leveraging it is very important. One campaign that can be used is featuring influencers that are popular among the youth to make voting more exciting and relevant, and also eliminating barriers that discourage young voters, such as limiting polling places, confusing registration processes, and by And by addressing these issues, we can make voting more accessible and empower more young people to participate. Thank you for listening.
Hi, everyone. Looking at everyone's serious speeches, I was a little concerned because I usually like to keep my speeches lighthearted. But I'm Tessin Reza. I study at the University of Pennsylvania. I study finance and math, and I'm 20 years old. And I'm here to share a very prevalent concern that I have been observing in my recent ages, from my teenagers to now. And I'm sure you have heard it too, that most of us, we all are, even in our friends and family, we say that I'm not going to vote because I don't like the candidates. I'm sure we have all heard it. And the outreach board did a wonderful job in analyzing how our individual identities really affect our choices in choosing a candidate or even our voting procedures. So I'm here to share a small anecdote, and hopefully it will motivate us, and especially the youth, to consider why we should vote even when we dislike the candidates. So 6 years ago, I came from Bangladesh to the United States as an immigrant. And I did my high school in Queens, where most of my peers were Bangladeshi Muslims, just like I am. But after I went to UPenn, and Ivy League school, where most people came from wealthy and ethnic majority backgrounds, I felt significantly left out in a lot of conversational settings. And I did feel a cultural shock there. So this one time at a politics club dinner, it's called a BYO dinner, where you bring your own alcohol. And I was the only one among the 50 other people who had cranberry juice, not an alcohol, because I'm a practicing Muslim. And everyone else they were all drinking alcohol, enjoying their cocktails and wines. And I realized that drinking culture was very prevalent in college, and it oftentimes forged quicker friendships. And it was very hard as a practicing Muslim who had a conservative lifestyle to connect with my peers. And it was emotionally challenging for me to relate with them. However, I didn't let my conservative lifestyle stop me from going out, making friends, or because I connected with my peers through other interests like sports and education. And I found a common ground even when we had differences. So the reason why I share this anecdote is because even when you dislike a candidate, there are certainly areas where you will find common grounds at. If you don't like someone's healthcare reform, you perhaps might appreciate their commitment to education funding. If you don't like their investment options, perhaps you will like their commitment to job creation. The point is that even when you dislike a candidate, politicians, like any other human beings, will always disappoint us. If you're agreeing with someone fully, you run the risk of being a blind follower. Disagreements is a part of the healthy democratic process of voting. So the point here that I want to make is, even when you dislike a candidate, don't let that stop you from participating in this democratic process of voting. Vote not just for yourself, vote for the people who cannot vote, vote for the people who fought for our rights, and vote for the people who will inherit the world after us. So speak out, stand up, and vote to reflect the change you wish to see. Thank you.
And our last speaker for the evening is Ashton.
Hello, my name is Ashton Naramota. I grew up in the Bronx, but I also went to high school in Manhattan. So this is where my experience is coming from. I wanted to take time to just thank you for your time. All of you who are here. I didn't think this is so many people. I have been in a bunch of things. Like, I was president of the environmental club that my school ran, where we did school recycling, beach cleanups. We went hiking, and we had students connect to nature. And we just wanted our kids to be connected to the community, even if it wasn't like our social community, if it's our environmental community. I've been in Caribbean Student Association, because I'm Dominican, Latino Student Union, Equity, which is to help make the school a more friendly environment. I bring these things up because this is what got me to where I am here right now and my interest in politics. I think we need to take more time to encourage our youth to involve themselves and not just when it comes to voting, although it's very important. It is not the only thing you can do. I started doing things like this when I was in 8th grade, and that's what fueled my passion to be here with, by the way, I'm with the CCRB, sorry about that, which is the Civilian Complaint Review Board. We do some cool stuff over there too. But I wanted to mainly talk about that, whether it's helping at a soup kitchen, reading at your local library, or just learning the politicians that are in your local area, like your borough president, the mayor. It's important to know everyone, because when you do get to that point where you can actually vote, you have a sense of what you're fighting for, the people you're fighting for, the people that can't fight, the people you want to fight for, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whether it's people that it hurts to see them go through what they're going through. Everyone has what's in their mind first when it comes to what's going on. So got you, I'll be fast. I just again wanted to thank you for your time, and I want you guys to remember the people that can't be here for whatever reason and the people that you're here for. Thank you.
Before we start transitioning to hearing from our Zoom testifiers, I just want to double check and make sure that everyone who wanted to share testimony today had the opportunity to. Okay. We currently have 3 folks signed up to provide Zoom testimony. Jolene Kim, Uma Hardeo, and Tia Holmes.
Good afternoon. My name is Jolene Kim, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently a rising junior at Bourne Hill School for International Studies, and I live in Brooklyn, and I'm 16. Although I still am not eligible to vote, I've been involved in the Chancellor Student Advisory Committee and the Mayor's Youth Council and peer mediation, which I was able to focus on civic engagement in my community. Because of these programs, I was able to understand the importance of youth voice and also understand how important it is for the youth to be included in decisions that shape our communities. Youth voter turnout is very important for making sure that youth voices are heard and also represented in local elections. While I was a peer mediator at my school, I was able to resolve conflicts and find the importance of restorative justice and the positive effects it has on school communities. And when programs like these get budget constraints, it can lead to less resources for students to find resolutions to their conflicts and less inclusive and safe environments for students in general. Unfortunately, there are many young people who don't think their voice will make a difference, and because of this, they aren't willing to participate. I've also had a role in the Chancellor Student Advisory Committee where I was able to advocate for a more inclusive education through a policy proposal that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Similarly, in MBSK, the Mayor's Youth Council, I was able to share my thoughts and fight for equitable funding and education. All these experiences have shown me the power of our voices hold in shaping decisions about funding, policies, and more. Nonetheless, there are people who are still not completely ready to vote, especially teenagers, because they don't have sufficient resources and they don't know the importance of voting. A great way to increase voter turnout is to make sure that high school students learn about the impacts that local elections have on different issues and voter registration. Also, there should be more discussions that are led by young people that can be centered around topics like budget cuts and accessibility for inclusive education and the voting process. In conclusion, I know now that there are many benefits in working to have more young people become civically engaged and the impact of the future of New York City. When we invest in educating people about voting and also highlighting issues we care about, like educational equity and restorative justice programs, we can make a real difference with our voices when it's time to vote. Thank you for your time.
Hi, everyone. I am Uma Hardeo. I'm 15 years old, and I am here with Teen Advocators, which is a youth organization that works to amplify youth voices and serve the community. Today, I stand here before you to champion a cause that has nothing short of revolutionary, the empowerment of young voters. Our democracy is facing a crisis, and the solution lies in the hands of the youngest members of our society. Gen Z, 40 million strong, holds the power to reshape our future, yet their voices are barely heard at the polls. In the 2024 Republican presidential primaries and caucuses, the youth turnout was a disheartening 4.8%. This is not just a statistic, it's a call to action. So why are so many young people disengaged? The answer is complex, but it boils down to the harsh realities they face: economic struggles, mental health crises, as mentioned before in previous speeches, and a disconnect from the political process. Nearly half of the current youth are grappling with mental health issues, making the already daunting task of voting seem almost impossible. And many remain uninformed, unsure of who to vote for or even why it matters. But imagine a world where every young person's voice is heard, a world where energy, creativity, and passion of our youth can drive change. They are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are the leaders of today. Although I am 15 and I'm not able to vote, I would be able to vote in future years, and having these changes would help me do that when I get older. Their concerns and our concerns about racial justice, climate change, and student debt are not just political issues, they are the very fabric of their lives. We have to break down the barriers keeping them from the polls. Outdated ID requirements, early registration deadlines, and convoluted voting processes should not stand in the way of their participation. It is time for voting accessibility and understandment for everyone, regardless of their backgrounds or circumstances. Political parties and campaigns also must listen. They need to address the issues that matter most to young people, and they need to show that their voices have power. We must invest in educational programs that teach students about the political process and make them feel that their vote is not a waste of time, but can truly make a difference. Imagine a world where every young person feels empowered to vote and contributes to their community. A future where their passion and dedication shape the policies that affect their lives. We have the power to make this future a reality, but it starts with acknowledging the importance of youth participation and making it a priority. Let's rise to the challenge together and show our youth that their voices are not just heard but valued. Their future is our future, and together we can build a democracy that reflects the vibrant, diverse, and innovative spirit of our youngest citizens. Thank you for your time.
Tia Holmes on the call? Okay, that's everyone. I want to thank everyone so much. I could not name everyone by name directly, but this truly was a team effort. Staff from across the division really stepped up to help and make this happen for everyone. And I will pass to Danielle, Paul, and Eric for any closing remarks you might have.
I just want to say again how terrific all the presentations were. They were clear. They answered really important questions. You all did tremendous research, and it's really hard to stand up and speak in front of a group of people, and you're all going to have tremendous futures doing that. And I hope that you do. I hope you do it more often. And thank you to all of you for all your work. And for those of you who didn't speak, thank you so much for coming and listening.
Thank you all. I'll echo Danielle's praise for those who did speak. Great job. I am inspired by all of you. I am thrilled with this level of attendance and engagement, and I am committed to working with my executive team at the agency and the whole staff and the board, members of both the VAC and the Campaign Finance Board to resource this work, to grow and scale this work, to engage youth, to improve how we do it, learn from all of you. So thank you all so much.
I want to echo what Paul and Danielle said. I'm just blown away by the energy in this room. I just the poise and the passion and the sophistication with which, like everyone who spoke and presented kind of grapple with some really tough issues. The challenges of getting your generation engaged and active. And I'm really excited to, like Paul said, work with everyone here and just take the energy of this room and get it out into the city and get people excited and ready to make a difference this fall. So thank you again for.
I believe that.
Wait, before we start, I want to take a second, just to congratulate and thank Olivia for creating this space and nurturing it and being a leader.
And then thank you so much to my youth team, Nick and Gatna. I believe that concludes our hearing. Ambassadors, do not leave until we dismiss you. My ambassador alumni, I want to make sure we get a photo. And then for those who testified in person today, I would love to get just a group photo of all of you. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us this evening.
Wait. We love voting. Good job.
Also, make sure you get some food. There's lots for everyone.